Good morning and welcome all to today's webinar. I'm Aranza Zugalan, part of the editorial board of BuildUp. BuildUp is Europe's largest international portal for energy efficiency and renewable energy in buildings. It is a unique community that provides the opportunity to discuss, contribute, and collaborate with other experts in these fields. BuildUp aims to bring together stakeholders working in the building sector to reap collective intelligence about energy reduction by encouraging knowledge exchange. Our editorial work is organized around the topic of the month, which allows us to go deeper into a specific theme. Each month, several items are on-produced as overview and technical articles and infographics, but not exclusively. BuildUp also offers the opportunity to host webinars on all the topics related to energy efficiency. More recently, BuildUp has opened the opportunity to distinguished experts in the field to share their knowledge in front of our cameras in the BuildUp Expert Talks. BuildUp portal shares daily the most relevant events in the field of energy efficiency and renewable energies, but also participates actively in many European events around the year as EPB Center and RIBA Conference, Horizon 2020 Interreg and Cost Action events, Covenant of Mayors, and much more, with the aim of further disseminating the results and helping to create high-quality media content. BuildUp content is updated daily, reaching around 120 new items each month. But BuildUp is not only us. BuildUp is a community, and we invite you to be part of it. By becoming a member, you can contribute uploading your own content and promoting your own news, events, or publications. BuildUp will help you to reach a broader audience through our social media channels and newsletter. It is a pleasure to host today's webinar entitled Skills Enhancement Needed for Energy Efficiency Historic Buildings, which is organized by Innovation and Creative Solutions for Cultural Heritage, INCREAS project. The webinar will share the project experience and outputs, focusing on the skills intelligence and enhancement for improving the energy efficiency of traditional building, pilots, implementation, and deployment. In today's agenda, Reinhold Saal, Burghauptmann Hofrat-Magister at Burghauptmannschaft Österreich, will welcome the audience and introduce the session. Gerald Wagenhofer, Managing Director at UBW, will present the energy transition and the role of construction skills in VET. Dr. Federica Epifani, Senior Researcher at University of Salento and the European University Center for Cultural Heritage, will introduce the INCREAS project highlighting the traditional skills at risk. Gerald Wagenhofer, Managing Director at UVW, will take the floor again to present the Pro Heritage project on improving the energy efficiency of traditional buildings. Finally, Astrid Huber, Head of Information at Federal Monuments Office Information and Training Center, Bundeskenmalat, will present the INCREAS project, highlighting the industrialized solutions understood as standardized implementation. 2 polls will be proposed during the presentation, looking for your participation. BuildUp audience is welcome to send us questions through the platform. These questions will be answered at the end of the presentation in a session with all the project presenters. I leave the floor now to our first speaker, Reinhold Saal. Thank you very much and enjoy. Okay, we have a little change of plans. Reinhold is not yet.
He's joining exactly now.
Okay. Good morning, Reinhold. Reinhold? Good morning.
Might be having some technical issues.
Yeah. Gerald, I will propose to pass to your presentation. We cannot be waiting a lot more.
Yeah, it's okay.
It's okay? Okay,
Yeah.
that's perfect. So I leave the floor to Gerald Wagenhofer, Managing Director at UBW. Gerald, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Welcome to our webinar today. It was planned that Reinhold Saal, he is the head of the Burghauptmannschaft Österreich, that he sent some greeting words. I think he will join us. Maybe I will interrupt my presentation for his words. The Burghauptmannschaft is the coordinator of the project INCREAS. 2020, and it will stop in March 2023. And we are talking, as already mentioned, about innovation and creative solutions for cultural heritage. And the first part here in that webinar is just to make the link to energy transition and the role of construction skills in VAT. I think you missed some of my words because I see my connection was lost. Can you hear me again?
Yes, Gerald, we can hear you.
Okay.
You can continue.
Okay, so while we talk about energy efficiency in traditional buildings and about skills in general in INCREAS, we talk about the the reasons for doing these projects was not really only the topic of the climate crisis, but it was going to be more important during the project duration. And you know the problem we're talking about, the problem is worse and will be worse, and the historic buildings are excluded officially from some legal requirements, but we think we have to keep our buildings in shape and energy efficiency as well, just to have a contribution and to minimize the problem we have here. Okay. Yeah. So we have some targets to achieve, and I think we haven't to talk that in detail, but we see a lot of countries are not doing enough. And the Burghauptmannschaft, as part of the Austrian government, is, as I mentioned, is not forced to contribute to the national targets, but it is their interest because you can take that with the when you report about the results, you can take it and show the historic buildings as well. Therefore, the interest is here quite high. You know that there are some targets about what we should do and how the energy transition should work. We should shift from fossil-based system to renewable energy sources. That was the reason that we do in Pro Heritage, in the one project we talk about today as well, that we have a look on how we can use renewable energy sources for historic buildings as well. And of course, the using of traditional materials like lime help us also for the decarbonization due to the effect of getting or collecting CO2 from the air when you have a lime wall as well. And by the way, there are some rules which came up the next few months. It's called ESG factors or ESG reporting, which is related to environmental, social, and governance, where again, public administrations are not forced to keep to that, but as the Burghauptmannschaft is a player, market player in historic buildings because they run these buildings, they are interested to know and to join that initiative as well. That's the figures we have to achieve. I think, of course, we cannot achieve it with historic buildings alone. But if you look at the numbers we have, if you look at traditional buildings, as we mentioned later on in the definition, it is about 20% of our building stock. So there is a contribution, and there should be considered the right way. You know, all these elements which should help us to striving to be the first climate neutral continent. We still have a way to go. The EU Green Deal will definitely support the activities and all what we have done in, as well as INCREAS, but foremost in ProHeritage, will also contribute to that. And of course, skills are very important, and INCREAS is related to skills in the sector of cultural heritage. And we know that, especially in the cultural heritage sector, we need people to work, because the traditional skills mean we have to have the knowledge in the people to work on. We need also not only creating new skills, but we have to integrate the new skills in the sector as well, because the cultural heritage sector often seen as a little bit reluctant to new skills. So we have to work on that as well. And because Europe is saying it will invest in upskilling and reskilling of its workforce, so we had to look at that. And in the first build-up skill projects, where the roadmaps, the country roadmaps was developed, the renovation or the architectural conservation was not considered enough in the most roadmaps I know. Therefore, we had to run the project and make that more visible. And vocational education and training will be the key measure to for of course for upskilling and reskilling, because we have to train the people during their lifetime. Okay. Okay. The activities on commission level, you know already, build up skills. There was some sectoral alliances for the cultural heritage sector as well. The only problem we see is that the traditional skills we're talking about are not included enough. There is the pact for skills, which should also increase the number of workforce or trained people in the sector. We still have to think about how we can integrate the traditional skills in that as well. And finally, this year, the year of skill 2023, is of course a supporting measure and supporting instrument to make clear how important vocational education and training is. And as we are also running a trainings center, trainings provider at the moment mainly in Austria, but it's called the European Heritage Academy, which is now 5 years old. And that's in the year of the skill, so that's perfectly for us, and we will celebrate that, of course, as well, end of this month. Sometimes there is a little bit delay between the next slide. Yeah, so I'm ready with my first presentation here, and I think there's someone to take over from me for the poll.
Yes, well, it takes the floor now, Dr. Federica Epifani. We will come with the poll afterwards, unless we have something different. Dr. Federica Epifani, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity, and good morning, everybody. As already mentioned in the introduction, one of the activities around within the INCREAS project was still is an in-depth analysis regarding skills at risk in the field of cultural heritage, with a specific focus on the building sector. So this purpose, the partnership has dedicated a specific sub-project And the aim was not only limited to the identification of okay. I can't, okay, yes. The aim was not only to identify the skills at risk, so therefore a mapping. And sorry, I hear some voices from, can you please close the microphone? Thank you. Not only the mapping, but also the definition of strategies to preserve them, as well as the implementation of appropriate monitoring tools. So the reason behind the crisis in traditional skills, especially those related to historic buildings and craftsmanship, are certainly to be found in low employment rates and attractiveness and slowdown in turnover, especially in these specific sectors. Moreover, some insights can be applied starting from the scientific research on the topic. And in this case, the scenario is far more complex, but at the same time, it offers promising results for a better understanding of the issue of the landscape, as well as some suggestion on how to meet the need for preservation. And there are some reasons for this. First, the research is becoming more and more interdisciplinary. It is closely oriented by funding opportunities, and this can suggest a synergy, an increasing synergy between policy and academia. Gerard mentioned the need for a shared action against climate change, and that's a relevant aspect. Another aspect worth to be taken into consideration is that this kind of research among the academic landscape allows us to map the expertise we can count on for the implementation of effective preservation strategies. And the last but not least, we can list the areas, the geographical areas where these topics are more relevant. So what we have done has been a bibliometric survey run in 2022, November 2022, and this allows us to assess the state of the art of the academic research. And we have consulted two of the main scientific repository, like in particular Scopus and Google Scholar. And then we processed the data using Excel and Boss Viewer. The results of the, let me check if, oh yes, okay. So in both cases, we run an advanced research using the keywords you can see in the first table, so the query. And the result is a corpus of 431 papers. The research was done in English before before this was considered the less limiting key, because many of the papers, regardless of the language they are actually written in, but they always have a title in English. So this allows us to grasp only briefly the theme discussed. But the fact is that after cleaning phase, data cleaning, the corpus become very, very limited to 40, because only 49 papers were considered really relevant for the topic. So we ran an analysis on an abstract analysis on 49 papers. So the main evidences the main evidence is that when focusing on risk, the large part of the research deals with endangered heritage, both tangible and intangible, rather than with skills. There is an equation between endangered heritage and endangered skills, and more specifically, traditional skills are considered worth of preservation because of their intrinsic value, while their usefulness to the recovery of tangible heritage is not properly stressed. New innovative skills in order to recover endangered tangible heritage are the most relevant aim of the largest part of the research. So digitalization is the big issue for academic research. Furthermore, a geographical aspect is worth being mentioned with regard to endangered craft. A significant amount of case studies has been located in Asia. And there's an interesting aspect that regards the placeness of many endangered skills, because many skills are linked to physical climate condition of the place. So there is still a gap between the recognition of endangered skills and the implementation of the models, strategies, and tools to properly define the risk condition and monitor it. And the most innovative attempts have been run outside the academia. An example is given by the Red List in the United Kingdom. What we suggest is to focus on a place-based analysis. So rethink skills at risk according to a place-based approach, because we suggest that the place-based dimension is intrinsic to the skills at risk. First, from a functional point of view, they depend on the physical characteristic of the area. So it determines the building choices in terms of structures and materials. And also, as a consequence, they have a symbolic meaning, because they represent expression of the territory and part of the social and territorial heritage skills. So they represent the supply chain. So by virtue of this dual value, the process of recovering skills at risk, here it is, this should be understood as part of a broader process of integrated and multi-sectoral approach to territorial development, also in light of the indication of Agenda 2030. In particular, the recovery of skills at risk appears potentially useful in mitigating the impacts resulting from urban sprawl and land consumption, because it could encourage the recovery of vernacular heritage with benefits from an environmental and cultural perspective. This can also have positive impacts in peripheral, depopulated areas, which are often the ones that hold a significant number of vernacular building heritage with effects on boosting employment. So we suggest that the role of academia should be focused on the development of methodological approaches that can be adapted to the territory, to the place, both for systematic mapping, monitoring, and intervention at regional level, but also to focus on these processes of heritagization of skills at risk, because that can be the starting point, but then it has to be operationalized, perhaps making academia other regional innovation processes that make the results of interdisciplinary research available to territories. So thank you for your attention. And now I'm introduce the poll, just 2 questions I would like to discuss with you later. So my
Yes, we will introduce the poll. We will change it. Thank you so much, Federica. Thank you so much for such a very interesting position, no? Where we apparently find that the industry for the first time is before academia. In this case, we will discuss later. We will, for our build-up audience and YouTube audience, we are gonna propose 6 questions, I think, in this part. That we can further discuss afterwards in the Q&A session if there is some gap. So let's see the first one. Okay, so the first one is quite easy. Where do you work? Let's see. Okay, we have many of you vote. Interesting. I'm seeing many Eastern Europe colleagues.
Hello, good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, absolutely,
Yes.
Gerald.
How can I vote? Should I just click on the quick poll?
You have a poll
yeah.
in your right hand side, where there is all the proposals, the chat, etc. There you have a poll also option. Perhaps as you are organizer, it's not available for you. Just take that into account.
Okay. Maybe yes.
Exactly. Okay, so we have 67% of you voted. Perhaps we can put already the final answers in the screen. Okay, that's perfect. So very interesting to see many Eastern Europe colleagues with us. Very nice. Let's go for the second one. Are you member of the Pact of Skills? Okay. Okay, I see a question from Giovanni. Hi, Giovanni. The name of the speaker normally is at the beginning of the presentation. If not, you see it in the left-hand side of the corner of GoToMeeting. But we will make sure that it's clear before each presentation. Okay, somebody else. Have 50, okay, 67%, nice. Let's go to see the answer. Okay, so no, almost 100% of our audience is not member of the Pact of Skills. Perhaps is interesting that Gerald or Federica can inform more about this pact. Very interesting Pact of Skills that is going on. So take it into account for the questions. Let's go for the third one. Do you plan to organize an event related to the Year of Skills? Yes or not? I can advance that build up, yes. So keep posted on that. We plan to to have in build up for all of you that are interested in this topic. It will be a transversal topic for all of for us during the whole year. So we will always try to have skills in the background, plus you know that we have built up skills that we will have its future event in a few months. But yes, we are there. Okay, a little bit more. Let's get to the number. Very interesting numbers here. Okay, let's see the final answers. Interesting. It will be very nice to hear those ones planning to organize an event. When we open the questions, please feel free to send questions that I can reproduce for our presenters if you want to present your projects. Let's go for the fourth one. Are you involved in skill enhancement for cultural heritage? For example, like F2F training courses, online training courses, webinars, peer-to-peer learning? Please let us know. Okay. I take the chance to tell you that build-up is always available for any of you. Please let us know if we can help with those webinars or whatever is interesting for you to propose to us and that would you think we can be of any help. So, okay, a little bit more. Okay, let's see the answers. Okay, very interesting ones. Not any face-to-face training courses. Online training courses continue to be a strength. Webinars and peer-to-peer learning will be the third one. Again, please, those that are proposing webinars, contact us if you think we can be of any help, because you know webinars are part of the build-up core. Let's go for the fifth one. Are you aware of any research project about skills at risk in your geographical area? Yes or not? Okay. Okay. A little bit more. This have been quick. Okay, we can see the answer now. So no is the most voted answer. Perhaps it's also some questions that you can ask to our presenters. What is exactly a project about skills at risk? Because perhaps you are not aware of that. Okay, and let's go to the final one for this slot. Does your country, region, or city count on a strategy for the identification of skills at risk in the field of built heritage? Yes or no again? Okay. A little bit more. Okay, there is a clear winner. Okay, I think I see the percentage that is voting all the time. Let's see the result. Okay, so unfortunately for our audience, there is a clear winner. There is no strategy for this identification of skills at risk. So something to take into account that I believe it will be very interesting for this bibliometric research also. Thank you very much to all. We will have another poll in a few. Let's give the floor now again to Gerald Wagenhofer, the manager director of UBW, that is gonna present ProHeritage, the other project that is with us today. Gerald, the floor is yours. Thank you very much. Hello, Gerald. We cannot listen or see you.
Yeah, now I
Okay,
can
thank
talk
you. That's
again.
perfect. Yes. Sorry. Thank you.
No worries. Thank you very much. Yeah, we also had a project the last three and a half year, exactly about the point or the topic of energy efficient historic or traditional built buildings. This was finalized roughly one year ago. What is our main focus here? And hang on. Yeah, here we're going. Yeah. Because the consortium we have, again, the Burghauptmannschaft is the coordinator, and we also have some other organizations which are related to build cultural heritage. And our question was, why we have always the topic that we have to discuss about how to improve the energy performance of traditional built buildings. Because usually you have the situation that if you're not involved in the cultural heritage sector or for listed buildings, you hear just two measures you have to do for increasing the energy efficiency. It's insulation and it's photovoltaic. And both has its place to be used. But first of all, we have to understand what buildings we have, because sometimes it's the wrong measure. And we have to define first what is the significant, what is the heritage values of the building we have in the front of us. And then first of all, we have then to respect that there are different characteristics between modern built and traditional built buildings. You see that the modern building is mainly related to moisture blocking. So we avoid water, we have no permeability, it's closed, it's not breathable, it's just a closed system. But if you look at traditional buildings, you see there's a completely different approach here, because we manage the moisture, the building is breathable, we have a permeability of the building, and it's vapor open. And if we close that by using modern materials and modern measures, let me say, to improve energy efficiency, then it will not work the way we're expecting. Therefore, we made this project because we see that there is no education, no trainings provider which cover that in full full beauty. So that's one of the reasons we started this project. The need was to keep the cultural heritage in shape and available for future generations. That's the overall topic or the overall target we have. On the other side, it's also that we keep historic buildings accessible and adequate for current and future generation requirements. And even the developments in the last year show that we have to do it for historic buildings as well. One of the things we also know from the beginning on, traditional buildings do have an enormous added value. If we invest in historic buildings, due to the fact that we have traditional skills, which is person related, we had an enormous impact, or the leverage to, if we invest in historic building. It's 1 to more than 6 euros. So when you invest €1, we will get more than €6 back, and this include all the possible paybacks from on the organization level, but also on the state level. We need traditional crafts. Since 10 years, we organizing a congress, and one of the first statement we found was traditional buildings need traditional crafts to be or that we can inherit it to our future generations. We do have a positive impact on climate protection, because last year we had a conference where the climate ministry in Austria said they are happy that the architectural conservation is starting to move, to be open for that topic. And my answer was no, we're just telling you what we did the last 30 years, and we didn't put it in the right context. Because if you look at, for instance, circular economy, we have usually used traditional materials in a circle. That means we are part of the circular economy. We did that since century. We mostly, or nearly in each case, we use natural materials, so we don't have problems with the disposal, and we don't have long transportation because we take it from the region. And each building is different. You cannot treat the Imperial Palace in Vienna the same at the Imperial Palace in Tyrol, in Innsbruck, for instance, because you have a different climate situation. It's built from stone, that's true, but you also have so-called Fachwerk buildings in Germany, or wooden churches in Norway. They all have needed a different approach, and even you have one group of building, we believe that it's not that we can apply always the same measures just by knowing it's this kind of building. The research questions we found, or we put on the point on the table, it was, what are the appropriate energy efficiency measures? So we took we collected some best practice examples to make clear that we are able to prove what is the appropriate energy measure. For instance, the Imperial Palace in Vienna is down to 80 kilowatt hours per year and square meter. And if you know that the average in Austria is above 200 for historic buildings, if you look at the statistics, and if you, for instance, look far east for Poland, for instance, it's about 400 kilowatt hours per year and square meter. So you know that, so you see, we can go down with these measures as well to a level which is interesting, and there would be a tremendous reduction of energy possible. But the point is, we have, and that's one of the things we learned, we have to always go to the cause of the problem we have, not on the symptom. Because if we have a loss of energy at one place and we just cover that, it's a symptom, a fight against symptoms. We have to make sure that we get rid of the original cause for this loss. And this is maybe water, and then we have to deal with water first. We identified the crafts who do need an upskilling, and it's nearly every trade we have we need in traditional buildings. And of course, we have also to mention to find out the learning outcomes which have to be covered in such a training. I was too fast. We had a definition of traditional buildings to understand what buildings we are talking about. Usually they are built before 1919 and was before the construction industry starts to prefabricate some things and started using modern materials as well. And these buildings are usually breathable. So they are, as I mentioned before, they are based on an exchange of air and water usually. But it could be still different, as you see the pictures here below. And if we take this definition, we are up to 20% of the stock of buildings in Europe, and that's quite an amount. And then you can imagine that dealing with traditional buildings and increasing the energy efficiency do have a significant contribution to the Green Deal in Europe. The basic rules we defined for interventions is stay in the system as long as possible. That means if you are working in lime, then stay in lime. If you work with other materials, then stay with that materials, because you never know what interaction you have between all traditional and modern materials on the one hand side, and of the other hand, if you don't look at the characteristics of traditional materials and look at the same for modern materials, you can mix of you have the danger is you mix materials which have different characteristics, and that's make the system or the situation much worse. You should always think not on the intervention now, you also think of the intervention, the next intervention in the future, because if you worsen the next intervention, it's not appropriate to go for with that measure. We have to take into account the life cycle of traditional buildings, which is tremendously long. So 200, 300, sometimes for instance, the Imperial Palace, it's sometimes 800 years where the buildings are there and we keep them in shape and we see that it's working. It means we have to talk, and that's the interesting story. We have to talk about the beginning when we get the traditional materials for the build, for the construction, and also for the disposal of the material we have used for these buildings. And this is an interesting fact, how to get this information about what material was used in the past. So that will be interesting if we talk about the ESG reporting I mentioned in my first presentation. To keep it in use as long as possible, that means repair and maintenance. And you have to, as I mentioned before, you have to identify and solve the cause, not the symptom. And you have to have a holistic approach to energy efficiency. It's not enough to say we have only 2 measures and we go for that. So it could be much more possible and help us here to reduce the energy efficiency. I mentioned already the life cycle of the carbon for traditional buildings with the lime, that you burn the lime. In the past, you have burned it, so you have emit CO2 to the atmosphere, and now during the operation, due to the building is still there, the lime takes back the CO2 from the air. And if you compare a historic or the existing building with building new buildings, of course, you have only one time the energy spent for this building in the past already, and you don't have to need energy for destroying and to rebuild the building. So we should look much more on keeping the buildings we have in a good shape and not starting to build new ones. And there are interesting discussions in UK about tax and so on. It's not the case in Austria, but the UK, they discuss about that the tax system is supporting the destroying of modern building, of historic building, just to build new ones. So that is also a fact we have to deal with or to change. Of course, the work we need to see that the work have to be done good, and you see if you do it with substandard compared to well executed, it could be up to 10 times more or longer duration of these stone walls, for example. We consider different trades, of course, because we have several. We have the walls with bricklayer, stonemason, mason. We have the roofs with a slater, roofer, tinsmith, roof plumber, window maker, lead worker, painter. So different trades are there. And the trainings are covering these. In the case of that, we have a general training about energy efficiency or increasing energy performance, and some dedicated trainings model online for several trades we need for keeping our historic buildings in shape. Yeah, this is the curriculum we have. You see that that's an introduction to the cultural heritage management, so the general one to understand about conservation. You have this the first part, which means respecting significance of buildings, traditional buildings, which mean how to intervene using traditional materials. What are their characteristics, advantages, and disadvantages? We talk about sustainability principles, which means that we talk here much more about climate protection as we have planned in the beginning. And we talk about significance and heritage values before we start any action for improving the energy efficiency. The next one is understanding traditional buildings. This means how this building is working. And then we have related to specific parts of the building, detailed detailed elements, learning elements, which help us to deal with, for instance, shutters and blinds, which we sometimes already have loose in some historic buildings. As I mentioned, also the renewable energies are part of it, and the unit 6 is for the oral exam, because we have a certification for the training as well. That means that you can take part in a face-to-face training. You have an online learning portal where you have the trainings material. You have a written exam, which is a multiple choice test, and you have an oral exam where you present a project example where you have applied these measures or these ideas we have put in the curriculum as well. And if you pass that, that means the written have to be 66%, that you can go for the oral exam. And if you then defend your approach for in that project example, then you can get the certificate as a certified energy expert for cultural heritage. Okay, I try to get the next page. It's not really doing what I'm telling.
Click in the slide and try again.
I do it already,
Okay.
but it's not moving forward.
There
Now it's
you go.
yeah, it was too much.
A little
So I have
bit
to
of
go
delay.
back. Yeah, okay. And then what are the results of the project? The main achievements, of course, was that we had developed training course material, and we tested it, including the curriculum, the trainings material, and also we validated the persons we know, and we had a validation and certification process for the future. We identified potential trainings provider, because we will roll out that training not only in Austria, but it doesn't make sense because it's covering requirements which are European ones. So we tried to find possible cooperation partners for the rollout. We had developed several videos for best procedures for craftsperson's work. Of course, we discussed the sustainability concept not only for the training itself, but for the it's related with the content in the training as well. That we talk about sustainability of buildings as well. And finally, we had a calculated reduction of energy consumption in Europe over 5 years, because Horizon has a specific calculation format for that, and this would be up to 17 gigawatt hours we could spare with when we apply the trainings as we mentioned in Europe. But of course, it depends on the number of trainings we offer, on the number of participants we have in the training, and therefore this is based on the assumptions we have for that part at the moment. But we're still interested to roll that out and help the sector to play an interesting part, or a significant part in the Green Deal, which is a major topic or the major objective of the European Union. Thank you for listening to me for this part. And now I hand over to the polls, I think.
Okay, yes, perfect. Thank you so much, Gerald, for the insight of the traditional buildings in detail and technical. We will go back in the questions because there are many questions tremendously interesting. So let's go for another poll. It's 4 questions now, and let's go for the first one. Okay, which traditional skills for climate protection are already dying or died out, under your opinion? Energy performance or efficiency skills per trade, conservation skills, building surveying skills, material scientific skills, or others? Let's see what our audience think. Okay, interesting. There is they're fighting. Okay, perfect. Let's see the results. Interesting. So a little bit more than 40% of our audience think that is missing conservation skills itself. After the building surveying skills, there were really in 50-50 at the beginning. Material scientific skills and others. Do not hesitate to let us know what these other are. I think it will be very interesting for the experts to know. Let's go for the second one. Do you know the EN 16883 of 2017, Conservation of Cultural Heritage Guidelines for Improving Energy Performance of Historic Buildings? Yes or not? European regulation. Do you use it? Do you know it? Okay, interesting. Okay, let's see the answers. I think I see the votes. Okay, there was almost 50-50 during all the time, but finally there is 57% no. So perhaps Gerald, you could illustrate us afterwards a little bit more about this European norm. Let's go for the third one. Do you apply the previous standard, the conservation of cultural heritage guidelines for improving the energy performance? Yes or no, in your work? Are you working with it? Do you use it? Okay, very interesting. Let's see it. It's completed now. Everybody have voted. Let's see the answer. No, it's not a standard that you use. Perhaps it's also for the profile, and remember that more than 50% of our audience was from Eastern countries. Perhaps that is very interesting to take into account. Let's go for the next question. What measures are you applying to your traditional buildings? solving water problems, repairing windows, repairing damages, roof insulation, internal or external wall insulation. Let us know. It's only one choice, but perhaps you are proposing several in your own traditional building, but what will be the one that is the most, let's say, proposed for you? Mm-hmm. You have 50% of votes. Let's go. Mm-hmm. Okay, let's see the answers. So the main will be the repairing the damages in general. Afterwards will be repairing the windows or substituting, I believe, and solving water problems. Okay, it's interesting to see there is not a key in insulation in any of both insulation. And there is another question, or that's all? Do we have another one, or we pass to our last speaker?
Now we go to the last speaker, yeah.
Okay, that's perfect. So last but not least, let's introduce Astrid Huber, Head of Information on Federal Monuments Office in Wundertskend-Malland. Astrid, the floor is yours. Thank you very much to be with us today.
Okay. Thank you very much. Can you hear me? Does it work?
Perfectly. Yes, absolutely.
Oh.
Yes.
So thank you very much. Yeah, the title of my presentation is Care and Repair, because this title expresses our main approach to heritage preservation in the Karthausen Mauerbach. So this is the former Carthusian monastery near Vienna in the Viennese Woods. It's a department of the Federal Monuments Authority, Austria. Let me see if it works. Okay. Experiences from centuries. The tradition of care, maintenance, and repair has been practiced for centuries. A radical turning point was the industrialization of building constructions, which replaced almost the entire craft tradition since the 1950s and replaced it with completely new materials and technologies of a globalized world and an efficient chemical industry. Petroleum-based plastics, industrially produced high-fired cements, and are conquering the construction market, displacing the local traditional building materials. The house becomes an architectural machine, but often only with a very short lifespan. So this was the background why our Center of Historic Crafts at the Karthausen Mauerbach was founded in 1984. Traditional handicraft techniques are the basis for the preservation of historic buildings. The Information and Training Center for Architectural Conservation, which is our name of our department today, in the Karthausen Mauerbach, we researches the knowledge of historical building materials and techniques and imparts this knowledge in courses to specialists from crafts, restoration, architecture, planning, and monument preservation. So our main topics are research and training, information and advice, and we have a lot of collections of architectural details, traditional tools and materials as a store of knowledge for historical building techniques. Oops. Okay, is it possible to go back to? Yeah, thank you. So here you can see the Karthausen Mauerbach. It's a really huge building complex, and we use this building as a training for our practical workshops. the ecology of the simple, or what we can learn from traditional buildings to increase the energy efficiency. This is our topic also in the 1000 Mauerbach. Historical buildings, even entire cultural landscapes, are characterized by regional occurrences of traditional building materials such as stone, sand, pigments, limestone, wood, or clay, building materials that are used in construction, but also in repair and maintenance. So our traditional buildings are made of simple building materials of natural or little modified origin, regional origin, short transport distances. The materials are mostly maintainable and repairable. They are reusable and recyclable. And these two photos show a really beautiful city in the center of Austria. This is Salzburg. And the reason why I show you these photos is because Salzburg is really made out of its surroundings. So you can see here the Mönchsberg, and this Mönchsberg was the crawl for mostly all of the houses you can see in Salzburg. This is the cathedral in Salzburg, the Salzburger Dom, and the Residenzbrunnen, so the main fountain in Salzburg. And the church was made out of this quarrel of the Mönchsberg, and the main facade of the cathedral, and also the fountain is made out of the stone of the mountain of a mountain nearby, the so-called Untersberger marble. So so these are topics we are dealing with in the 1000 Mauerbach in our research projects. And I show you now some slides dealing with this topic. So this is one of our collections dealing with the with stone and all the different stones we used in our traditional buildings in Austria. The lime technology is one of our main topics in Mauerbach, in our research project, but also in our training projects. We are burning in our lime kiln twice a year. We are also dealing with traditional techniques like the direct slating, for example. And of course, also the sand is a very important topic if you think about our traditional mortars. So we had a research project going on, collecting all the different sands we have in Austria, and now we have a collection of 140 different sands we use again in our conservation and restoration work. Here again, of course, all those sands were analyzed scientifically. And we are also dealing with the natural pigments, the earth pigments. If you think of Venice, for example, or other Italian cities, you see the earth pigments in the facades. This is how it should be, and unfortunately often we can see cities like this where they do not use the earth pigments anymore, but they use modern paints with artificial pigments. We are also dealing with the topic of clay. In Austria, we have a lot of clay buildings, so they really use the material they found in front of the houses for the walls itself. They also use straw for the thatched roofs. So here, this is an example we did again in the 1000 Mauerbach in our big cloister. And now I want to show you some slides of our training courses. So we do a lot of training courses, especially advanced training for craftsmen, conservators, restorers, architects courses for smithies, engravers, stonemasons, painters, carpenters, and so on. And we are also a service and information center for owners, architects, but also for the craftsmen and restorers. We have around 25 to 29 courses going on each year, with around 450 to 500 participants in our courses each year. As I told you before, the training place, or the practical work takes place in and at the surfaces of the Katusha monastery. So it's a kind of work in progress where we restore the building step by step by doing courses with participants. Gerald Wagenhofer also told you this, that we always try to stay in the system. So if we have a lime plaster, we use the lime technology also for consolidation work. And we have a lot of experience dealing with this topic since 30 years. Of course, also for care and repair work, we use the lime technology. And of course, for reconstructions, we make our traditional plasters in worksite mixtures with special sands from the region, and the lime we burned before in our lime kiln. And this slide shows you now another plaster, very nice plaster from Renaissance times in a castle in Lower Austria. And I only show you this because this this plaster is from the early 17th century, and it's still in a perfect condition. And if you're thinking how long this material stays and it is still repairable, we can learn a lot from these traditional techniques. And there are today also contemporary architects, like, for example, Baumschlager Eberle, with their example in Lustenau. This is an office building. And the idea was here to use the traditional lime technology for the plaster work outside, but also for the surfaces inside. And the idea was that this building should last also between 150 to 200 years. And normally at the moment, we are demolishing the buildings from the 1980s and 1990s in Austria. So a new building at the moment has a life cycle from between 15 to maximum 30 years. And our traditional constructions, our historic buildings, they last over hundreds of years. So we can really learn a lot of from this building tradition. We have also courses going on for our apprentices. Here, for example, the traditional masonry construction. So massive walls are a topic. We are also dealing with facing brickwork. We have courses and workshops going on in Lower Austria. We are dealing also with dry masonry. This was in Tyrol, a workshop. Also, the conservation and restoration of ruins is a special topic where the restoration goal is very interesting to define. And of course, we always in our works, we stay in the system, we work with the traditional materials, we consolidate in lime technology and so on. Also a very important topic are the stucco ceilings. We have a lot of stucco ceilings in Austria from the Baroque time, and these stucco ceilings are made out of lime mortar, so lime, sand and water. So of course also here we stay in the system, material continuity. We do also the consolidation work in lime technology. And of course also the reconstruction of these decorations in lime technique. There are some special examples in Austria where we do find also clay stucco here. So they used really the materials they found in front of the castle. Here they used also the clay for the stucco ceiling, and we did a workshop there. We have also courses for stone masonry techniques, and here also important, the participants learn to work in cooperation with, so the craftsmen cooperate with the academic conservatory restorers, as you can see here on this slide. We have a lot of courses going on in our metal workshops. So here, for example, the training for blacksmith and for engravers, as you can see here on this slide. Traditional techniques like like doing inserts with lead. This is also a traditional technique which you can also learn again in our workshops. This is a slide where you can see our window collection, and there's a course going on dealing with the topic of the restoration and repair of historic windows. To do the glazing in linseed oil putty again. And of course, the traditional linseed oil paint, which is the best protection for wood. And why the linseed oil paint? To avoid damages like this, you can see here, of a modern lacquer systems, because every lacquer system is dense and does not allow the water to come out. Not the linseed oil paint. The linseed oil paint always stays open for humidity to come out. Also, the traditional corrosion protection with red lead and linseed oil is topic in our workshops. And traditional plumber work, copper roofs here, very nice example from Salzburg, where you can see Baroque copper roof with the handmade plates from 1693. Knowledge of centuries. I told you about our collections, and now I will finish my presentation with some slides of our collections. Here our window collection, again in the big cloister of the monastery. We have a big collection also of his traditional tools. Brick collection. Wooden floors, also a very nice exhibition dealing with this topic. You can see the exhibition. And we have twice a week, we have open days with lime burning and traditional crafts. Next time it will be on in the beginning of June, 3rd to 4th of June. And here you, at this weekend, you can see all our different topics, presentations of the traditional crafts, restoration work. You can come with questions, and our lime kiln will burn, and so on. So I thank you for your attention. Visit us in Mauerbach or on our homepage, bda.at. Thank you very much.
Astrid, thank you so much. It was so interesting. It's always so rewarding to see the final product and the outcomes and how they are applied on site. So yeah, extremely interesting. I see Reinhold. Hello. Finally, we don't want to miss your words, although not a welcome anymore, but your words about these projects and the topic in itself. So I leave you the floor. Thank you so much for joining us. I think, sorry, I think you're mute, Reinhold. Please check that you are not unmute on your right-hand side.
Oh, it's done?
That's perfect.
Okay,
Here.
thank you. It's a different program for me. I have to orientate. Okay, thank you. It's a late time. Thanks for meeting this webinar. I have to tell, Gerard said this, how important the words why we are interested in being a partner or leader or whatever in European projects, because we as the Burghauptmannschaft responsible for for a lot of historic buildings in the ownership of the Republic of Austria. We are very interested to share knowledge, to share ideas, to share techniques Europe-wide. And build up skills is very important for us because we want to be a part in increasing the knowledge of traditional craftsmanship and the techniques. And it's very important to go together with European organizations. They have a lot of experience and a lot of knowledge, and to learn from them. It's very, yeah, it's one of our aims to be partner in Europe. And so thank you for taking part in this webinar. And I hope we will see again in other projects or in this project or whatever. And I thank you that you're a partner of us and we can be partner of your organization. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Reinhold. Indeed, these two projects are extremely interesting and key for Europe, right? For our identity. Traditional buildings are part of us, and we cannot put them apart. So now I think we have 2 questions remaining for this poll. And afterwards, we will go for some questions from audience. We have kind of many also from Build Up because it's a very, very interesting topic for us, very key for us. So let's go for this poll where you can interact with us. Okay, which institutions for skills enhancement you know? Monument protection authorities, private training providers, for example, the Europe conservation companies, or others. Let us know. Let's see. Oh. Okay. I see a 50-50 now. Mm-hmm. Okay, I think we can see the answers now. So the majority know the monument protection authorities. Private training was winning at the beginning, but finally others. Again, we would love to know which others do you propose to animate the conversation. And let's go to the final poll question. So have you ever heard about the European Heritage Academy? Yes or not? Mm. Okay, let's see the answers. Okay, so more than 50% of our audience have said no. We take good notes so we can further explore and give you some data on that. So although we don't have a lot of time, let's go for some questions from audience. First one for Gerald. The audience said, Gerald mentioned that almost all crafts are in need of upskilling. Are there specific ones that should be particularly prioritized? And if yes, why?
Well, that's a good question. How to prioritize the trades which need upskilling? I think it's not the same in all European countries, of course. We are discussing, or we try to analyze the skills at risk on different, as on the partner country level as well. But if you look at that, you have different feedback on that. For some areas, they say all traditional trades related to historic buildings are already at risk, and we have to maybe we're not upskilling, we're also talking about reskilling, because we don't have the people they be able to work in that area. But others, I think, for instance, in Austria, we have some trades where really an upskill is needed, because we have still some tradesperson, but they don't know really how to deal with traditional or with cultural heritage, with traditional buildings. So a general answer on that question, sorry, I'm not able to give here.
Okay, perfect. Continuing a little bit with the ProHeritage project, the audience wants to know which should be the next steps after the ProHeritage project, building on the results of the project.
Yeah, that's related to the European Heritage Academy I mentioned at the end. I'm quite happy with the 43%, because we are now 5 years on the market, but we didn't make too much marketing at the moment, because limited resources means that we cannot do more marketing, because otherwise we won't be able to deal with the requests for the training. We established the academy after the end of the first project we did. It was Modify, where we developed the maintenance manager for cultural heritage, and now this year we will take over and start the first courses in German, definitely, but we also will offer trainings in English as well this year. It usually is, we plan to have 2 modules, 2 days, which will be run in places where we have workshops. So of course, at the moment, it's the Charter House in Mauerbach would be the one. We know that we are able to run the trainings because we have the facilities, but we're still looking for other places to do it, and we'll offer that on a regular, business basis, I would call, that participants can join the trainings. They will be mostly face-to-face, because we think we need to be at historic places to get the significance of the place and to understand why we deal with that in a specific way. But we don't have dates for the moment. But it will happen this year that we start with the rollout of the training. So what we have in mind, and we will discuss that further, we will organize a summer academy this year in Mauerbach, and this will be in English, but we haven't fixed the date for that at the moment.
Yes, Gerald, Build Up will be very happy to help you with these dissemination activities. So please take us into account, because
yes, I will do that.
Again, yeah, so this is your hubs now. Let's go for Federica, because I think the bibliometric research that she proposed is outstanding. There were some outcomes where there were like, let's say that academia was a little bit behind, let's say, than the industry in this case, no? Let's say that the market was adopting the skills that is needed, for this traditional. Can we know a little bit more about these outcomes? Where was industry, or let's say the market, was in front of academia, and why do you think this is happening, and where academia needs to put themselves, perhaps?
Well, that's a very interesting question, because it actually sums up the real issue, because the real issues is the region. Where's the what is the territory we are talking about? Because every region is different from the other. So there are some areas in which academia is trying to develop an integrated approach, so working together with industry and the market, and other areas in which this is not happening. So I would rather start to analyze the good practice, because they are not best practice, they are good practice, because when we deal with best practice, we think to something that we can just adapt every context. So I refer to good practice. For example, in Italy, there's a huge work which is being done on the what we call marginal areas. So the academia, where the main part, the large part of vernacular buildings is placed, and in this case, academia and administrations are working together. So they work together in defining a common framework and common aims where to work. But it depends on the, again, it depends on the local actors.
I would like to add here, because
Yes, please.
it is also related to a fact that I released, I identified in all the projects we have, and it's also related to the Pact for Skills we have discussed earlier today. The traditional skills are in the industry, in the sector, and it is, yeah, it's there, and it's not the search for new things. So the link between the industry and the academia on that in that area is not really related on traditional skills. If you look at the cultural heritage research, it is also mainly related to what is this building, how you run it, what is the history of it, what is the values on it. But if you go down to say how we can repair it, how we can maintain it, it is not so really related to the academia, related to cultural heritage. And we have the same problem for Pact for Skills, for instance, what I mentioned before. There is a Pact for Skills for cultural heritage, which is mainly related to museums, archives, libraries, and archives. I always forget the archives, the CLAM sector. So this is cultural heritage. But if you talk about the construction sector, this is also a Pact for Skills for that area. You don't have the traditional skills included there. And you also have it not in the cultural heritage. So it's always between the both sectors. And this is the reason why we in cultural heritage not really know about the Pact for Skills, and we don't have the players to go for it, because there is no big industries or big companies in Europe, not very much. I think 3 or 4 of them in Europe. They have more than 100 people working in that area for maintaining historic buildings. They are usually small companies, and therefore they are not able to make that Pact for Skills on European level. They might be able to do it on a regional level. But this is still on the beginning, because the Pact for Skills is now, I think, 1.5 year old, so roundabout.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And then now starting with the regional agreements as well. And I think that the problem is that the traditional skills often gone lost in academic research, and also in the And when you look at the industry in or the measure of what the industries are doing, like the Pact for Skills or other things. So that's, I think, also a topic that the academic is not really taking on the traditional skills, because usually also you get, when you talk about traditional skills, often the answer, we're talking about waving baskets. This is also traditional skills, but not related to buildings, of course. And there's also a separation here.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, you give me the perfect the perfect push to go to Astrid and ask her, is this lack of craftsmen that can repair these traditional buildings a drawback to being more attractive? Let's talk about, you have put examples of beautiful churches and so forth, but we also have traditional buildings working as dwellings, and they seem less attractive for being for clients, let's say. No, is this lack of workforce a drawback to buy them and use them as in the past?
I think it's not a drawback. I think it's it should be maybe more topic in the future, because we, as I told you, we can learn a lot of these traditional buildings also for our modern future contemporary or contemporary buildings, to especially if you think about energy sufficiency, to build up houses that will last longer than 30 years, with made out of massive walls and not only glass, where we have problems with overheating in summer times, for example. Made out of traditional materials with no or less transport ways, natural origin, and also you have to think about the waste of the modern building products. They are not
Absolutely.
recyclable in many cases.
Absolutely.
Is this what you asked me? I was not. I didn't understand.
Yeah.
Really.
It will be a long answer and a beautiful discussion. But I myself come from a country where we have buildings of more than 1,000 years in perfect condition, and we have houses of the 90s completely cracked.
Perfect.
So I love conservation. So with I will try in a very humble way to do a recap, because you have made so many quotes that are outstanding for what is going on in the discussion in the European ecosystem of traditional buildings. I take the words of Astrid about traditional buildings that already check up so many sustainable boxes, no? And they are that are the ones that we are trying to achieve with the new buildings, and they are there, and learning from the past. Love that phrase. I take from Federica all this study on this, what is going on, what is already there, to recap it and make it understandable and make it usable, no, with this bibliographic research, and mainly these skills at risk, a beautiful word also. There is a market for all these traditional skills, and we need to promote it from different angles, not only from academia but also from client and market. And finally, with this big recap that Gerald have already given us, with this pact for skills going on, and having to really be on the reality of this 20% of traditional buildings around Europe is our identity, is what we recognize, what is Spain or what is Germany, because we get there and we recognize our buildings is part of us. These strategies for skills at risk, that was very interesting to see our audience not knowing about them, and Build Up is taking good note to make them know about them in future. And for sure, this European Heritage Academy that we hope that we promote more, and that is the beginning of a change for all this workforce that is a potential for Europe, or at least we say it like that. I have to thank you so much for this so insightful and so very interesting proposal of webinar, where we go from the theory to this reality that Astrid put in our screen, seeing how they work. That is outstanding, because we see the reality of the European project that is not only floating very high level, they are really landing these projects, and you are a big example of that. Thank you so much, and hope that we have you again in the future. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you from our side as well.